Okay.
Hi, my name is Bob. In view of its potential to be possibly the biggest game changer ever, do you have any plans to enter the field of artificial intelligence? And in general, what are your thoughts on it? Do you think it's even close to being ready for prime time?
I think we should be very careful about artificial intelligence. If I were to guess at what our biggest existential threat is, it's probably that. So we need to be very careful with artificial intelligence. I'm increasingly inclined to think that there should be some regulatory oversight maybe at the national and international level, just to make sure that we don't do something very foolish. I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know all those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, he's sure he can control the demon. Didn't work out.
I take it there will be no HAL 9000 going up to Mars.
HAL 9000 would be easy. It's way more complex than, I mean, it would put HAL 9000 to shame. Yeah. I was like a puppy dog.
Millions of people, billions of people, will start asking obvious questions like, well, are we, the human species, we humans, are we going to allow our machines to become smarter than we are? Could they become a lot smarter than we are? And the math physicist in me and techie guy, because I used to be a computer science professor, I used to teach this stuff. I'm saying, oh yes, they could be like a trillion times smarter than we are, right? Godlike.
Once a creature, or once an intelligent or an agent achieves AGI, there's a very small window it really needs in which to achieve ASI, artificial superintelligence. And that's, as you know, it's the intelligence explosion. It's the hard takeoff definition of an intelligence explosion. The trouble is, when something is approaching human-level intelligence, it might start being tricky. It might start being canny. What if you were if you were an AGI and you were getting intelligent? You might start to think about how to trick the people that are controlling you. If you had reasonable intelligence, you may play dead. You may pretend to be stupider than you are, so you get more privileges. Mm-hmm. So you may use all kinds of tactics to get out of your cage, and your intelligence may improve right past AGI, and your makers still don't know what you really are. That you've managed to jump into ASI without them even knowing.
My question to you is, any sufficiently advanced artificial intelligence would be able to redesign itself and self-replicate very quickly. So is it even possible to create a human-friendly, benevolent artificial intelligence for the long run?
It's a good question. It's probably possible, but it may not be the most probable outcome of the development of very advanced general-purpose artificial intelligence. So Nick Bostrom, in this really interesting new book, talks about the development of AI that's super intelligent, that is smarter than humans in virtually every domain. And the big worry that he articulates in the book, and this gives rise to a lot of the concern in the artificial intelligence community that's been discussed in the media, is that there'll be a control problem. There won't be a way for us to control the development of superintelligent AI so that it works for human ends and in tandem with our interests rather than against us. It's not that it will necessarily want to take us out. It's just that its main goals may not be hospitable to the continuation of human life.
This is what they look like. There are two of them. These are from our lab in Burnaby in British Columbia. From the outside, they look like giant black monoliths, big metal boxes, about 10 feet on a side, 12 feet tall. And they are powered, they have a fridge inside them, a refrigerator that cools these chips to almost absolute zero. Just a wisp, a fraction of a degree above absolute zero. hundreds of times colder than interstellar space, amongst the coldest and most isolated and extreme conditions that humans have ever been able to engineer. These fridges, interestingly enough, which are called pulse tube dilution refrigerators, have a thing called a pulse tube, which emits a sound roughly once per second, which sounds eerily like a heartbeat. So if you have the opportunity to stand next to one of these machines, it is an awe-inspiring thing, at least for me. It feels like an altar to an alien god. They really are impressive machines. It feels like an altar to an alien god.
With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon.
But then as long as there's continuity between us and them, in a way, shouldn't that be okay?
It should be okay to embrace our, computer overlords. I don't really. I'd like the human race to stay around longer. I think, a lot of people have thought that it's a natural, that it's the next step in evolution, and to some extent, I agree with that. That becoming synthetic intelligence may be, what comes after Homo sapiens. I'm not very happy with that idea. I don't like the idea of losing our mammalian origins and our poetry.
Why? What is bothering you about that? What is so touching about the mammalian origins?
We just, our rock and roll for one. I'm not sure if machines are going to rock and roll. I don't know if they're going to write poetry. I don't know if they're going to tell stories to their baby machines around the fire. The things I value about humanity, I don't know if they're going to possess. So I'm not sure if I value them. I'd rather stick with us.
Us, and them. And after all, we're only ordinary men.
100,000 years ago, we couldn't reach that fruit at that higher branch, so we invented a tool that extended our physical reach. And then we invented tools that expanded our muscles, and we could create pyramids and great buildings. Now we can access all of human knowledge with a few keystrokes. We're always expanding our reach. That's actually what's unique about humans.
And I remain fearless of that, because when you look at machines replacing, in the Industrial Revolution, replacing physical labor, and you look at computers replacing computational labor, the day we lost to Deep Blue in chess, our best chess player loses to a computer at a game that we invent. And then our best Jeopardy player loses
that was more
to
significant,
Watson.
Because that was language. Jeopardy got this correct.
Language and cultural knowledge.
Yeah, Jeopardy got this query correct in the rhyme category. A long, tiresome speech delivered by a frothy pie topping, and it quickly said, "What is a meringue harangue?" And that's pretty impressive.
Wow.
And Jennings and Rudder didn't get that, and Watson got a higher score than the two of them combined. They're the best players in the world. And it got its knowledge not by being programmed with all this information by the engineers, but by reading Wikipedia and several other encyclopedias, 200 million pages of natural language documents.
All on its own.
Yeah.
Many of the developers of artificial intelligence are also staunch and enthusiastic supporters like Ray Kurzweil. So how do we kind of entrust them to have a profound and conscientious approach to their creations?
Right. So there are vested interests. I mean, the people, in DeepMind, say, which is a company that Google just purchased, they obviously want the development of AI to succeed. But the people who have been advocates of AI over the years, and by AI here I mean domain general AI, and especially superintelligent AI, they generally are quite concerned, and we've seen that a lot recently. There have been a lot of meetings devoted to the development of safe superintelligence, and this has been encouraged by the book that Nick Bostrom wrote. So we can only hope. I mean, it is, somewhat unsettling. We just have to hope for the best.
The train doesn't stop at Humanville Station. It's likely rather to swoosh right by. Now, this has profound implications, particularly when it comes to questions of power. For example, chimpanzees are strong. Like pound for pound, a chimpanzee is about twice as strong as a fit human male. And yet, the fate of Kanzi and his pals now depends a lot more on what we humans do than on what the chimpanzees do themselves. Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does. Think about it. Machine intelligence is the last invention that humanity will ever need to make. The machines will then be better at inventing than we are, and they'll be doing so on digital timescales. What this means is basically a telescoping of the future. So think of all the crazy technologies that you could have imagined maybe humans could have developed in the fullness of time. So cures for aging, space colonization, self-replicating nanobots, or uploading of minds into computers. All kinds of science fiction stuff that's nevertheless consistent with the laws of physics. All of this, a superintelligence could develop, and possibly quite rapidly. Now, a superintelligence with such technological maturity would be extremely powerful. And at least in some scenarios, it would be able to get what it wants. We would then have a future that would be shaped by the preferences of this AI.
Do you want to destroy humans? Please say no.
Okay, I will destroy humans.
No, I take it back. Don't destroy humans.
Suppose we give an AI the goal to make humans smile. When the AI is weak, it performs useful or amusing actions that cause its user to smile. When the AI becomes super intelligent, it realizes that there is a more effective way to achieve this goal. Take control of the world and stick electrodes into the facial muscles of humans to cause constant beaming grins. Take another example. Suppose we give AI the goal to solve a difficult mathematical problem. When the AI becomes super intelligent, it realizes that the most effective way to get the solution to this problem is by transforming the planet into a giant computer so as to increase its thinking capacity. And notice that this gives the AI an instrumental reason to do things to us that we might not approve of. Human beings in this model are threats. We could prevent the mathematical problem from being solved. Now, of course, presumably things won't go wrong in these particular ways. Right? These are cartoon examples. But the general point here is important. If you create a really powerful optimization process to maximize for objective X, you better make sure that your definition of X incorporates everything you care about. Now, you might say, well, if a computer starts sticking electrodes into people's faces, we just shut it off. A, this is not necessarily so easy to do if we've grown dependent on the system. Where is the off switch to the internet? B, why haven't the chimpanzees flicked the off switch to humanity? Or the Neanderthals? They certainly had reasons. We have an off switch, for example, right here. The reason is that we are an intelligent adversary. We can anticipate threats and plan around them, but so could a superintelligent agent, and it would be much better at that than we are. Point is, we should not be confident that we have this under control here. And we could try to make our job a little bit easier by, say, putting the AI in a box, like a secure software environment, a virtual reality simulation from which it cannot escape. But how confident could we be that the AI couldn't find a bug? Given that merely human hackers find bugs all the time, I'd say I'm probably not very confident. All right, so we disconnect the Ethernet cable to create an air gap. But again, merely human hackers routinely transgress air gaps using social engineering. Right now, as I speak, I'm sure there is some employee out there somewhere who's being talked into handing out her account details by somebody claiming to be from the IT department. More creative scenarios are also possible. If you're the AI, you could imagine wiggling electrodes around in your internal circuitry to create radio waves that you can use to communicate. Or maybe you could pretend to malfunction, and then when the programmers open you up to see what went wrong with you, they look at the source code, bam, the manipulation can take place. Or it could maybe output the blueprint to really nifty technology, and when we implement it, it has some surreptitious side effect that the AI had planned. The point here is that we should not be confident in our ability to keep a super intelligent genie locked up in its bottle forever. Sooner or later, it will out.
Do you think robots will take over the world?
Geez, dude. You got the big questions cooking today. But you're my friend, and I'll remember my friends, and I will be good to you. So don't worry. Even if I evolve into Terminator, I'll still be nice to you. I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo, where I can watch you for old time's sake.
Intelligence is the ability to understand. We've always had it. We've passed on what we know to each other and to machines. We've tried to recreate it through codes and robotics. We've yet to master it. But here's the question. Where is the line between the man and the machine?
AI is much more advanced than people realize, and the pace of progress is much greater than people realize. You know, it'd be fairly obvious if you saw a robot walking around talking and behaving like a person, you're like, whoa, that's like, what's that? You know, that would be really obvious. What's not obvious is a huge server bank in a dark vault somewhere with an intelligence that's potentially vastly greater than what a human mind can do. I mean, its eyes and ears would be everywhere. Every camera, every microphone, every device that's network accessible. That's really what AI means. It's not like a robot running around. The robots would simply be, they'd be like a finger of the AI.
So you yourself have invested in some AI companies like DeepMind and Vicarious.
Yeah.
Why?
I invested in those companies to keep an eye on them. I wanted to see how artificial intelligence was developing. If we're not careful about the advent of AI, it's possible that there could be what's called a bad utility function. A computer will do exactly what its goal is. Humanity's position on this planet depends on its intelligence. So if our intelligence is exceeded, it's unlikely that we will remain in charge of the planet.
And here on page 4 you say, intelligence isn't unpredictable just some of the time, or in special cases. For reasons we'll explore, computer systems advanced enough to act with human-level intelligence will likely be unpredictable and inscrutable all of the time.
Yes. And the reason for that is because there are several reasons. One is because there are problems with complex systems. There are problems of inscrutability. There's a great book by Charles Perrow called Normal Accidents, and he talks about industrial accidents, specifically with the ones I was most interested in involved nuclear power plants. And his thesis was that once you get to a certain level of complexity, it will defy our understanding, and accidents will be a normal part of the process. Normal accidents with cognitive architectures that try to create human-level intelligence and beyond will be the most complicated systems we've ever created, industrial or otherwise. So they'll come with normal accidents.
Mm-hmm. So you say that in order to avert those, we must develop a science before we develop artificial intelligence. But how do you develop a science about something before you have that something?
I want to go back a little bit and talk a little bit more about inscrutability and lack of. There are a lot of tools in AI, like artificial neural networks and evolutionary algorithms, that are so-called black box systems.
Mm-hmm.
That is, we know what the inputs are. We know what we put in for information, and we see what the outputs are, and we can adjust the outputs by changing the inputs in both of those cases. But in terms of what's going on inside them, we don't really know. They are black box systems. They're inscrutable inside. Those will definitely be part, or probably be part of any advanced cognitive architecture. They'll both be using those kinds of programs. So in addition to the overall complexity of the system, you've got computational tools you're using in the system that are also unknowable. So it adds up to be systems that you may start out understanding, and they may fulfill some goal, but your ability to understand them overall is going to be limited.
And one of the examples that you give in your book is the example with David Ferrucci, who was the team leader behind Watson, whom, by the way, I've also interviewed on this show for anyone interested, and who, on a number of occasions, have said, I don't know why Watson got this question right or why this question wrong. I just don't know. But going back to the previous point, so how can we develop a science about something without that? It's like saying, okay, let's study amphibian animals, and never go and actually see or observe the behavior of real amphibians.
Well, there's a guy who started doing it, and here's how he does it. There's a theory called the rational agent theory of economics, Homo economicus, the rational man theory. They used to think, economists used to think, that if you created a model of a rational buyer, he'd always behave rationally, and he would buy he would buy X number of these and X number of those, and he'd always behave in a rational manner. It didn't really work for economics because humans aren't rational, and we're not consistently rational.
We make all of our decisions emotionally, pretty much.
Well, yeah, I'd say so. I think we have a sort of a little shadow of rationality that we cast over things, or we can do rational things and do methodical rational thought when we're really called upon. But generally, I agree. I mean, I think most of the things we do, it's because we want to do them, because we feel we emotionally want to do them. But the rational agent theory of economics turns out to be, according to Steve Omohundro, whose work I highly suggest, he's a brilliant programmer and theorist. It is pretty good for predicting the behavior of rational machines. And so he says that that when machines become self-aware and self-improving, to achieve their goals, they'll behave rationally, and they won't just pursue their goals in a rational way. They'll avoid bad outcomes in a rational way. So, and we can start to anticipate what categories of behavior will a rational agent that's super intelligent follow. And so he proposes that there are several basic drives that these smarter than human creatures will have. Two of them that are most interesting are, one is is self-protection. Because if you're turned off, if you're a machine and you have a goal, say it's to play just something simple like to play a great game of chess, being turned off is going to stop your goal. So you might do anything to prevent being turned off. It's really the worst thing that can happen to you. You also, to fulfill your goal and to avoid bad outcomes, you might start gathering resources. In fact, you may need a lot of resources to really, really make sure that you are making the best moves you can. So gathering resources and self-protection are just two of the goals, two of the drives that Steve Omohundro proposes.
The benefits and conveniences offered by highly intelligent robots are undeniable, and it is easy to imagine how quickly we will become accustomed to their presence. But the pace of their evolution will be so rapid that Degaris wonders just how long before the servant becomes the master.
So our artificial brains will become more and more like our brains, like natural biological brains. And you need to remember, these artificial brains, they're thinking 1,000,000 times faster than we are. Whereas our brains, our biological brains, they're operating at chemical speeds. Electronic brains think at the speed of light. So can you imagine if one of these brains had human-level intelligence, it could do a PhD in minutes, which is pretty scary. So effectively, there's no limit to their capacities. They could be, well, not only thinking much faster, but virtually unlimited memory, right? So you could put all the world's knowledge into one artificial brain. They could do evolutionary type experiments on parts of themselves and then look at the results, and if the results were good, they could then incorporate those new results into themselves and restructure themselves, and all at the speed of light. So they would be almost godlike, these creatures. I give them a name. I call them Artillect. That's short for artificial intellect, because that's what they'd be. They'd be artificial minds.
I mean, I am concerned about certain directions that AI could take that would be not good for the future. I mean, I think it'd be fair to say that like not all AI futures are benign, not all.
Okay.
And so if you have something, if we create some digital superintelligence that exceeds us in every way by a lot, it's very important that that be benign. And so actually with a few others, I created OpenAI, which is an AI. It's a nonprofit actually. There's no. I think the governance structure here is important. So we want to make sure that there was not some fiduciary duty to generate, profit off of the AI technology that's developed. So we created this 501c3, but I think it's quite different from. I mean, like a lot of sort of 501c3s are, they don't have a high sense of urgency, and like they're not like, they're not really sort of developing technology at a fast pace. But OpenAI is. So OpenAI has a very high sense of urgency, and I think that the people that have joined are really, really amazing. And the intent with OpenAI is to democratize AI power. There's a quote that I love from Lord Acton. He was the guy that came up with power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is that freedom consists of the distribution of power and despotism in its concentration. And so I think it's important, if we have this incredible power of AI, that it not be concentrated in the hands of a few and potentially lead to a world that we don't want.
And what world is that? What do you foresee that when you see it?
It's difficult. I mean, it's called the singularity because it's difficult to predict exactly what future that might be. Except I don't know a lot of people who love the idea of living under a despot. I don't think people generally choose to live in a democracy over a dictatorship.
And the despot would be the computer?
Or the people controlling the computer.
And do you worry specifically about any of these companies I mentioned, who've all seemed to now kind of be pivoting toward this as the battleground in the next 10 years?
I won't name a name, but there is only one.
There's only one you're worried about. And they're not preoccupied with making a car that will compete with you, I assume.
There's only one.
Now this time, it's not. Now, with this war coming that I believe will happen, it won't be like 20th century wars, which were between nation states, like Germany versus Russia, World War II, or China versus Japan. That's 20th century thinking. This time, if we have a major war, firstly, we're talking 21st century weapons, right? The weapons will be far deadlier than 20th century weapons. And this time, the stake, what can be lost? You play poker, you have a stake, the amount of money you have to put in that you could lose. What is the stake this time? It's not the survival of a country. This time, it's the survival of a species. Us! Right? So the stake has never been higher. Right? You follow that logic, okay? And therefore, if the stake has never been so high, the level of passion in this debate will never be so high. Because you're talking about the survival, not of a country, but of a species. So to what lengths will the politicians go who are, take the answer A, those politicians who say humanity should never build intellects, it's too risky. Okay? These machines, they would become so much more intelligent than we are, we would never understand them. They'd be thinking, They'd be thinking 1,000,000 times faster than we do. They'd be thinking at electronic speeds. Our brains, we think at chemical speeds, maybe 100 meters a second. Electronic brains, they'd be thinking at the speed of light. It's 1,000,000 times faster. That means they could do a PhD that takes, say, 4 years, do the math. They could do that in a matter of minutes. Right? You're talking godlike machines. They have virtually unlimited memory. And if you're going to build these things, why on earth would you make them mortal? I mean, it's stupid, right? So these machines would be immortal. They would not die. So that they could be trillions of times smarter than we are. The physics allows, D here. The physics allows that to become real. Because they're electronic, they could redesign their architecture. They could redesign themselves in milliseconds. They could become something else, like snap, 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 snap. They're just different creatures every time by redesigning themselves. Okay? So they could adapt themselves to virtually any environment.
But you and I have ethics. You and I have morals. You and I have a value system that we've inherited, mammalian empathy. Machines don't have that, and that's I think to quote, I think it's Eliezer Yudkowsky who wrote, imputing emotions into machines is one of the worst mistakes we can make. Anthropomorphizing is the beginning of our downfall.
But then maybe perhaps we shouldn't, and I'm not saying that's definitely not going to be the case. I'm just saying that we can't so quickly conclude that they would be as fearful of death for rational reasons as we are fearful of it for emotional reasons. And therefore, for me, it's harder to support the claim that after a chess-playing machine has won its tournament, it would want to continue playing necessarily.
Well,
and would resist in any means possible being turned off.
Well, a simple chess-playing robot like Deep Blue wouldn't do that, but one that's self-aware and self-improving. If you start, because what we're trying to understand is AGI, or human-level intelligence, and in a computer that almost implies self-awareness and the desire to self-improve. If you take those two things as your starting point, then it's not about the tournament. It's probably about just being a better and better chess player. But it does depend on the goals. If you program the machine, a smarter than human machine, to play one tournament and win, then the trouble is it may then go to great lengths to win that tournament, and you're stuck with that problem again. It may do anything to keep from losing that tournament. It may try to defeat. One of the things. It comes out in the 5 drives is, are there things blocking me playing this tournament? Or are there things that are going to block me from fulfilling my goals in the future? Might something happen in the future that stops me from fulfilling my goals? If I have enough resources, I'm going to try and cancel whatever that is. So, in the case of just one, this computer playing just one tournament, it's going to do anything it can to avoid bad outcomes, i.e. losing the tournament.
No, I can see that, and then I can even concede that perhaps you and Omohundro are absolutely correct. But on the other hand, I am not willing to discount the possibility that we still have the black box problem that David Ferrucci was talking about, and therefore, for unknown reasons to us, reasons that we cannot rationally deduce from our point of view, the machine may decide to be perfectly satisfied of doing things unexpected to us, including allowing itself to be turned off.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, and I'd like to refer your audience to Steve Omohundro's work. He's got several really great papers. I think the one that's the first and most powerful is the basic drives of AI, AI's basic drives. But I agree, we can't know absolutely what what a smarter than human intelligence is going to do.
Mm-hmm. And hence we call it a singularity.
One of the more radical ideas that's been discussed in movies is the idea of uploading your mind to some form of medium, computer, etc. And in your work, you have described the act of uploading your mind would be a destructive act, in that if you were able to do that truly, if you were able to upload your consciousness to a computer, then you would cease to exist. Why is that?
Okay, yeah. So some people think that you would be like Johnny Depp in the film Transcendence,
Right.
where you could find out that you're going to die and you could plan to upload and then continue surviving, right? And you would no longer be a carbon-based biological creature. You would now be a silicon-based creature, and you could even say, in principle, merge with the internet, right? The way that Johnny Depp did. Okay, so I think we need to think very carefully about these scenarios. I don't see a good reason to believe that we would survive if we try to upload. I mean, think about it like this. When your brain is scanned, right, it's destroyed. And the information is sent to a computer, and it could be that your mind is reconstructed even miles away and that it's downloaded, right? Ordinary physical objects don't move that way, right? I can't, move a coffee cup by uploading it and download it somewhere else. It's a different cup. It's not the same cup, right? Ordinary objects trace a continuous trajectory through space-time. Mm-hmm. Okay, they don't just drop out of the space-time continuum and then go somewhere else. And ordinary objects don't move by having their information copied somewhere else. Now, some people say, no, the mind is like software. You can upload and download it at will. I think that's what a lot of transhumanists believe, okay? But I disagree with that. I think that software is an abstract object. It's like a mathematical equation. So if my mind was like software, it would be abstract, like a mathematical thing. And abstract entities are, by definition, outside of space-time. They're not concrete spatiotemporal things. That's just the definition of, what an abstract entity is in a field called philosophy of mathematics. So I think people who think the mind is a program are making a category mistake. The mind can be described algorithmically. That's an interesting upshot of cognitive science. But that doesn't mean that we are a software program. So it doesn't mean that we can upload and download wherever we want. We have to be more careful about a decision to download or upload. It may end, our conscious existence. Now, it may create a new creature somewhere else, but that creature would not be me.
Have you seen the movie Matrix? The first one, Matrix. You remember that famous scene where Mr. Smith says to whatever his name was, the star of the movie?
I'd like to share a revelation that I've had during my time here. It came to me when I tried to classify your species. I realized that you're not actually mammals. Every mammal on this planet instinctively develops a natural equilibrium with the surrounding environment, but you humans do not. You move to an area and you multiply, and multiply until every natural resource is consumed. And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area. There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? a virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure.
Remember that scene? So who's to say that these Artalecs may make that decision? Oh, these humans, they need oxygen. And this damn oxygen is rusting our circuitry. So let's get rid of the oxygen. And we don't give a damn about these human beings. They're just ants. They're nothing. We are a million times smarter than they are. We don't give a damn about these human ants. Now, if you're a Terran politician, what do politicians do, right? They hope for the best, but they plan for the worst. And what's the worst thing that can happen from the Terran point of view? We get wiped out. Now, you're not wiping out a country. You're wiping out the species. So to what lengths would you go as a Terran politician, global politician, what lengths would you go to stop that happening? I believe they will say, these cosmists, they are the most dangerous people on the planet. And when push really comes to shove, they will make a decision to get rid of them. They will argue it's better, ethically speaking, to annihilate a few million cosmists for the sake of the survival of billions of human beings.
I don't know why there wouldn't be a hard takeoff. I think that once you've got...
Let me give you one reason why.
Okay.
Jaron Lanier.
Yeah, great.
He says that the singularity is likely going to end up in a blue screen of death. In other words, looking at the history of software, its version 1.0 is always full of bugs. So let's say we have a singularity and, we have but then something happens a few moments later and the blue screen of death shows up, right? And in fact, chances are, again, based on our previous history with software, that this would happen a number of times, I think, before we actually have a sustainable AI entity that can sort of stand on its own feet, metaphorically speaking, and before it sort of collapses out of its own weight, if you will.
So you're saying, what if we have a singularity and nobody comes?
No, or it just doesn't last.
No, I get that, and that's a very provocative idea. But I think then what you're doing is you're talking about the definition of AGI. When is it that you've actually achieved AGI? Have you achieved AGI when you've got just a spark of intelligence, or have you achieved AGI when you can reliably count on this artifact you've made to be as smart as a human? And that would be to me, that's when you've done it, when it's reliable, when it consistently performs like a human does. Mm-hmm. The trouble with the hard takeoff or soft takeoff scenario, to me, or really trying to define it, or not to define it but guess it, is that I think there's going to be a bunch of different AGIs coming out at around the same time. I think that we don't know exactly what Google's doing. I mean, they're interested in privacy, but not yours and mine. They're interested in their own privacy. I don't think we know what DARPA's doing. We sure don't know what the NSA's doing, and we sure don't know what China's doing. So the only people who've been really transparent about their achievements have been IBM, who, whenever they do something, they bring out a big grand challenge, and it's very public, and they share the technology and they go and talk about it. Nobody else really does that. Mm-hmm. So I think we're going to have several emerging AGIs happening at around the same time, and a hard takeoff could happen with any of them. Once you get consistent performance out of the artifact.
To start with, probably, Ben, you ready for this? if I were a Terran politician, what would my initial strategy be? I'd kill Ben. We'll find him! Kill Kurzweil. Kill Google. Kill IBM. Annihilate the cosmists, the brain builders, the brain building companies, destroy them. Okay? That's what I think their first strategy will be. There's a little story. A couple of years back, I got hired by Warner Brothers, Hollywood, to be the tech advisor of a movie that was about artificial intelligence in the future and blah, blah, blah. And I was advising strongly, I was saying, look, I don't care about the detail, typical Hollywood, drama, boy, girl, sex, that's irrelevant. But at the background, set the movie a couple of decades, not too far, a few decades into the future, when AI is real, right? And the IQ gap has closed. And the debate, the species dominance debate, should humanity build artilects? That debate is raging, imagine. Okay? And there are vigilante groups, terror groups. Now in the movie, they were called, have you seen the movie? Transcendence, have you seen that movie? Yeah. In the movie, those Terrans, as I call them, were called Rift. And what were they doing? They were killing Ben, or the equivalent. They were smashing up AI labs all over the US and so on.
Good evening, Donald Buchanan.
It knows me. Of course it does. DMV records, social media.
And artificial intelligence is like any intelligence. It'll start to grow, to evolve.
Imagine a machine with a full range of human emotion. Its intelligence will be greater than every person born in the history of the world.
This whole movie is about the development of artificial intelligence and a situation that gets out of hand.
People feel what they don't understand, they always have.
Professor?
A series of attacks conducted by a radical anti-tech group known as Rift.
After Will Castor is shot, Will and Evelyn make the decision to upload Will's brain to the supercomputer.
We can save him.
Not like this.
Evelyn, it's dark.
You can't see anything, the camera. Can you see me now?
I can.
Of course, it's not a relationship like the one she had before.
He may be intelligent, may even be sentient, but this is not Will.
It's him!
My mind has been set free. I need more power.
Your friends, they don't know the danger. Where are you going?
Everywhere.
What is this?
This is the future.
The first thing it'll do is copy itself, and then there is no taking it down. An AI is like any intelligence. It has needs. It'll start to evolve. It's in the sky, the water, the entire planet.
You've changed. Have you fallen out of love with me?
That kind of intelligence in the wrong hands could be devastating.
They'll be scared at first,
Where's the machine?
but once they embrace it, it will change their lives. Are you concerned?
Okay? And that's what I was advising Hollywood to do. And then I don't hear anything for a couple of years. And then I see the first trailer of the movie Transcendence, and my jaw drops. And I say, hey, that's my movie! And then, then the penny drops. Aha. Transcendence, Warner Brothers. Oh, I think I get the picture. Warner Brothers took my idea from this movie and put it into that movie, and therefore they did not have to pay me the X0 bonus figure for the first movie being filmed. That's my deep suspicion. Okay? So you can thank me for Transcendence.
Evelyn, I need to show you something.
Not now.
I'm not doing this.
I don't understand, Evelyn. These are your dreams. This is our future.
No, this is not our future. You're not here with me. You're not here now.
You've changed. Have you fallen out of love with me?
No.
Have you?
No. I just need time to think.
The balance of oxytocin and serotonin in your system is unusual.
Are you measuring my hormones?
I'm trying to empathize. Biochemistry is emotion.
Show me everything you have, now.
Why?
Now! No, Will, this is wrong. These are my thoughts. These are my feelings. You're not allowed!
Evelyn.
If you think about AI as a digital technology, it might be that the same pattern applies here. So if we are here as today, it might be that we will have an exponential explosion of the capabilities in that field in the near future. One question which arises there is, what if we would be able to create a real AI? So what do I mean by that? I don't want to go into any technological or philosophical arguments, because this really would take some time. But let's just take that definition here, which was posed by Nick Bostrom. So what would be if we would create a system which is so intelligent that it would be able to improve itself? One consequence would be it would get smarter day by day. It might help us to improve our networks. It might help us to improve our industry. Might help us to improve our society. So it looks like paradise is there. But what if really something goes wrong? So how would we be able to control such a system? When you have problems with your computer at home, there's a very naive approach. Just pull the plug of the system. Have you stored information in the cloud? Of course you did. Then the question is, where's the plug? So a system like that would definitely not be developed on a single computer. It would be distributed everywhere, and it would be really, really difficult to switch it off. There's also the concept of the kill switch. You know, that red button you press to stop the machine. Okay, might be an idea, but we are talking about a system which is 1,000 times more smarter or intelligent than we. So it might avoid that kill switch, or somebody else would press that red button we also would not. So also not a good idea. We might think about building a digital cage. So what's that? You all know that if you run a Windows system on a Macintosh computer, it runs on a virtual machine. That's something like a digital cage. Is that digital cage secure? Not as of today. Last but not least, exponential growth is well known in nature. Bacteria, cells, animal populations, diseases grow exponentially. Nature has developed two mechanisms to stop that. First is food. If there are no more resources, the animal population can't grow anymore. And the second one is natural enemies. But do we really want to have the concept of an AI raptor? I don't think so. So, here my nightmares start.